The 2017 BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Championships in the shadow of the Watzmann Mountains in Bavaria. We're at the Königssee track, the oldest artificial ice track on the planet, as we get ready for the second of 4 heats in the Women's World Championships. Hello everybody, I'm Martin Haven, alongside me 2010 Olympic skeleton champion Amy Williams. And Amy, we've got an interesting battle for our medals.
We do, yes, the 2 Germans and the Canadian up there, but only 2,700 behind is our very own Lizzie Arnold. So it is a fight. The Germans, who know this track really, really well. That was Elizabeth Varget coming down in 3rd place. And then here, Tina Hermann, who's come on up through. She's in 2nd place, fighting for that first between the teammates. They know the track really well. They know where to get the speed, especially from these bottom corners of the track. Perfect lines coming on through. And then in the very first place is Jacqueline Lolin, who hasn't got the best start in the world. She's 23rd in terms of start position, and yet she just gets every single little ounce of speed, even making tiny little mistakes like she did there. She still knows how to get the speed out of this track and finish there with a 52.02 time.
Well, she broke the track record by nearly 0.2 of a second in last weekend's team competition. She's the fastest girl in the first of our 4 heats, but look at the gap, just 0.06 of a second, and behind the 2 Elizabeths, Varget and Arnold, 0.02 of a second separate. I was just talking to some of the families, and they're saying, can Lizzie catch a 1/4 of a second in 3 heats? Yes, she can. Will she? That's another thing, but that's only 700ths per heat. She's got to be faster, and suddenly she's right in there, 800ths, and she's in front. You know, we are talking minuscule centimetres of difference.
Lizzie and Elizabeth Varget, the Canadian, had exactly the same start time of that first heat. Both did a 5:05. And yet Varget just managed to find that extra little tiny few hundredths of a second. All can change. That was only run 1. We have 3 more to go. You take 1 little tap, 1 little skid. Let's see who can really force out that power of the start.
Just saw the 2 Elizabeths there. Elizabeth Arnold, Lizzie Arnold skipping, and Lizzie Varget walking past her. There's Elizabeth Varget. You saw your world champion Tina Hermann struggling with a bit of a cold at the moment, and Jacqueline Lurling just a few hundredths in front. Now, this is something we see the athletes doing a lot. You don't sit up and drive with your hands like a bobsledder, but you're still thinking your way, rehearsing the run, so that when it happens, it's exactly what you expect, right?
Yes, these athletes only get 6 runs of official training. Yes, you know, there might have been some odd other extra trainings and obviously over the years, but yeah, it's all in the head as well, visualization.
We go 20-1 in our 2nd heat, and then from 21st on down to 31st position. Great first run from Belgium's Kim Meilmans, rookie Anna Fernstedt and Mirella Reniva, all in the top 10 as well. We get to our fast 4, Lizzie Arnold, Elizabeth Varget, Tina Hermann, Jacqueline Lurling, and then from 21st on down to 31st place. Still plenty of time for positions to change, and some of the gaps are very close. First led on the ice, 2nd heat of the Women's Skeleton World Championships is Renata Kutsina, the silver medalist in the Junior Worlds just 3 weeks ago in Sigulda. But the Russians struggle here in the first of 4 heats.
Yeah, she just put down a faster start time than that first one, so maybe those nerves have left her and she's able to just find those extra bit of power at the start.
Just outside our booth a few minutes ago, Amy, it's noticeable how much the temperature is dropping. It's 5 o'clock in the evening. Track could well be faster now.
Yes, the track is probably going to be a little bit faster. She's here in the Königssee. You can see that there's a good little shine on the track, so they would have spritzed it in between runs, got away any of the little broken up bits of ice. So the track should now be back to in a good condition. It's colder, it's the evening, and it could actually quicken up as we go through the evening. But that was a good solid run from her, 53.45. So that was a little bit quicker than her first run down, so she'll be very happy with that.
Yeah, she avoided hitting the wall out of the Königssee. We talked in the first heat with Lizzie Arnold back on ice. with Amy Williams alongside me in the booth, and with the 2006 Olympic champion Maya Pedersen competing. We have the last 3 Olympic champions. I was corrected about that about 15 minutes ago, because we've got the 2016 Youth Olympic champion here as well in women's sculls. We've got 4 Olympic champions on the venue.
I mean, it's a good sign that this track has held up and is actually faster, because she got down there, you know, a few hundredths quicker. She still made a few odd mistakes. So I think we might be up with a good fight towards the top girls here.
Renata Kusina is our race leader. We've had 120 sleds down already today, and we're moving up to 150 by the end of this heat. This is Japan's Takako Uguchi, one of the most experienced sliders in the field now, 32 years old. And you're guessing perhaps in her penultimate season on ice.
Yeah, she's a former track and field athlete, and look how tiny she is. She's slotting onto that sled, perfect body position. Good start. She is a little bit down on time, but let's see how these next few corners go into the S-bends here. Combination of 4 corners that go straight, one into the next. So there's no thinking time in between. Really good exit there, and is up into that green so far. Always want to see a bit of green. Very high there going into the Kreisel, and that can tell now that she's got quite a lot of oscillations, but controls it well coming out and down into that little labyrinth there.
Again, we were talking before the show about how tiny Maya Pedersen is compared to the modern breed of athlete in women's skeleton. And Takako Uguchi is very much in that, you know, 5'3", 5'4", quite light. And when you give away weight in body weight, you end up having to push a heavier sled at the start, which slows you down at the start, takes something out of your acceleration, because you want to be up to the maximum weight for athlete and sled to allow gravity to help you as much as possible.
Yeah, she's got a lot of experience, this Japanese slider, been sliding since 2004, but you're right, she is one of the tinier ones. I mean, look, the sled's almost bigger than her, and it's still a weight category sport here, because it all goes off of that sled, so it's not discriminating against anyone, but it is hard to compete if someone is potentially 15 to 20 kilograms heavier than you, a bit like we were saying with Maya. But a good solid run here. She got down, yes, still faster than her first run. So she's maintained that position, and she's going to be happy.
200ths of a second to lead Takako Uguchi from Japan. Former double junior world champion as a brakewoman for Swiss bobsled, converted to skeleton 3 seasons ago. Marina Gilardoni, one of the fastest starters in the business when fit. And unfortunately, she's had a back complication all year, and a 5:06 is a long way from where she would expect to be starting, maybe even 2/10 off her start, and that's going to hinder her performance everywhere down the track.
Yeah, she's missed the last 2 races because of her back injury. So back injuries are very common, especially with that bent over start and the pressures, etc. So it would knock her confidence a bit. At the moment, she's got an incredibly good start still, 5:06. A little bit scruffy there, she is fighting, but at the moment she is holding on to her position, and I think this will be a faster run than her first one.
Well, she was 600ths in front of Takako Uguchi, not 6/10. She's now 74 hundredths in front, and at the line, a way better run. Now that's the that's the Marina Gilardoni we expect to see on a more regular basis. A 53.4. This one, a 52.6, so that's 0.8 of a second better. So that loose first run is going to take a lot of recovering from, but there will be a sigh of relief and a big smile on the Swiss girl's face.
Yeah, she's happy there. There's the difference in the last 2 competitors there sliding on the dartfish. You can just see the difference. I mean, Marina has got a good history here. She got a 3rd place in the World Cup last year at the very end. So she has performed really, really well on this track, which does show you that maybe the injury is just affecting her. But that was a very good second run, and she's smiling. So good stuff.
Second starter in our field of 31 was Dutch girl Kimberly Bos, one of the younger athletes in the field. Made her debut at the age of 19 in Winterberg, now 21 years old. Her first full World Cup season under her belt. And she was the bronze medalist in the Youth Olympic Games 2012, driving women's bobsleigh for the Netherlands. So like Marina Gilardoni, converted from bobsleigh, using that speed, that power here in skeleton to give her a good start.
Yes, unlike the other athletes who were here a few weeks ago for the World Cup race, she wasn't, because she was at the World Junior. So she missed out on those extra slides. They only get the 6 slides to learn the track, but she has been doing really well. It's suiting her, and she just had a great exit there out of Kreisel.
She worked really hard in the Kreisel. She was 3 tenths up, came out 2 tenths in front. This will be down to single digits at the bottom. Oh no, she has kept the speed on board. I was worried she might have oscillated a bit too much. And across the line, 2900ths in front of Marina Gilardoni. And she was only 200ths of a second slower than the Swiss girl on that slide. So that's a big improvement for her as well. We saw this in the men's field, didn't we? Sliders who are at the bottom of the top 20 had a much better second heat and sort of leapfrogged 4, 5, 6 positions up. And I think Kimberly Boss and Marina Gilardoni should do the same.
Yeah, she's just come down 4 tenths quicker than that first run. And I think she's got a good future. You know, she has done so well. She did really well. But yeah, we've just seen the start there of replay. She just actually missed her hands on the sled, but luckily controlled it and has got her perfect position. You're trying to find the one perfect position to lie on the sled.
Kimberly Boss, your race leader. Jacqueline Narracott from Australia, next up, 5th of our starters in the second heat, where we take the fastest 20, go in reverse order, and then 21 on down to 31. So Jackie with a 600ths of a second lead over Kimberly Boss, who is currently in the lead after her second heat. She's going to have to find a big improvement herself as well, because the 2 girls who've immediately preceded her on the track have done exactly that.
Yeah, she might have noticed here that she's actually chosen a visor that is slightly orange. Depending on the lighting, you might want a clear visor, a slightly darker visor. It's a bit like sunglasses. And actually, with the lights coming on and the dim, sometimes this orange visor can help you distinguish between the ice. Gives you a little bit more definition. Personal preference. Thought I'd just point that out there.
200ths behind from the start, only 600ths behind into the Kreisel. 1200ths now. She's slipping a little behind Kimberly Boss in the Netherlands. So Jackie Narracott, whose mum and dad are here, travelled all the way from Perth in Western Australia to watch the race. Now she's closing back again. She's got good speed at the bottom. Can she hold her position? No. 52.76. Kimberly Boss stays in the lead. Jackie Narracott slips 1 spot at the moment. But we talked about this before, and we will talk about it again. The gaps in this field are so tiny. A tiny error or a small improvement can make a big difference.
Yeah, she just became a little bit scruffy in that middle section, and although her lines were actually very good in those bottom few corners, she'd lost the speed. So that's the exit of the S's, coming out and into that straight. Good line, but she just drops off a little bit, taking that knock, which means that she's just having to fight a little bit down that straight.
Kimberly Boss, the race leader, from Jacqueline Narracott and Marina Gilardoni. First 5 of our 31 sleds are down. In 15th place after the first of 4 heats in the Women's Skeleton World Championships, the most experienced Russian woman. This is Maria Oliver from St. Petersburg. Maria now 28 years old, an economics graduate. Won in Altenburg in Germany, the toughest driver's track in the business, in January 2015, but has not stood on the top step of a podium since.
No, great start from her there, 4.95, which is quicker than her first run. So she's giving it all she's got here. Really good line there. Tiny, tiny little tap, using her feet to control it.
Into the 360-degree Kreisel, you exit underneath the track on the way in. Still 2800ths up, so she's lost about a 10th of that lead over Kimberly Boss.
Yeah, one of the more experienced sliders, so she would have slidden here, you know, many times over the years.
She had 3 tenths exactly ahead of Kimberly Boss, and that suddenly vanished. Look, last corner she went from 3 tenths to only 1700ths up in that last 50 feet of track. Well, Maria will not slip a spot. Kimberly Boss has picked up a couple after what for her was a disappointing first heat.
Yeah, you always want to stand on that box at the bottom there in front of the TV in first place. So yeah, she had a different line there because she hit a little bit later, that little tiny tap that you're aiming to try and get. It meant that she just hit a little bit further down. But a good solid run.
Always a big smile from Maria. Next up, Savannah Grable, one of our World Championship debutants. She had a couple of World Cup races at the beginning of the season for the USA. 10th in Whistler, 15th in Lake Placid. And now in her first World Championships, 28-year-old. Her twin brother is also a skeleton slider in the US program. Haven't seen him yet at the top flight. In USA, played by the track announcer, 5:23 fractions slower than her first start. Now, as the temperature drops and the track gets harder, the start area does as well, and that can sometimes mean that actually it's harder to get purchase and a little frost on the runners, maybe.
Yeah, it's hard to see really without sort of being up there. I think the ice was roughly the same temperature as it was on our first run. They take the temperatures. But yeah, it depends. Sometimes the sled can run freer in those grooves that you see that holds the sled on. Yeah, it's kind of suits different people at different stages.
Slipping her spot at the moment. She got out to 3600s back. She's pulling it back in though to Maria Oliver. She needs another few hundred meters, 500ths of a second behind, so she does slip a spot. A 52.79. Oliver came down in a 52.68, and Oliver was only 600ths behind. Went 800ths, beg your pardon, went a little more than that faster, so she overhauls Savannah Grable by 500ths, and those tiny margins we talked about.
Tiny hundredth of a second, and it's all about these different angles as we see here. She did take that little tiny hit out of the Kreisel, but that's enough to bleed the speed and just to alter the way that the lines are going through. She controlled it really well going there, but it means it's just not quite as smooth.
Maria Oliver holds the lead for Russia. First of the British athletes in the top 20 is Laura Dees, lying in 13th spot after the first of 4 heats potentially in the World Championships. Women's bobsleigh, women's skeleton. Maria Oliver of Russia leading. Well, Laura got off the sled. Amy Williams looking a little disappointed. She's got a very quick start, another 4:97. That'll be among the 3 or 4 fastest women.
Yep, she's matched her own start time from run 1. That is a massive strength of Laura's. She was disappointed with that first run, coming down in 13th place, so she's definitely going to want to creep up here, and she's got the potential to. So far going really well, solid run, great position on the sled.
Better run down the straight, big second oscillation in the Kreisel. Can she get out clean? No, not quite. Was 1600s up on Maria Oliver, and that gap will shrink.
Yeah, let's see if that little mistake there affects the speed. Her head is really low. You can actually hear it on the ice as she goes around the corners.
Across the line, 2600s. That was a better run from Laura Dees. Caleb Smith on the left, Eric Bonotis on the right. And there is the British support. Her mum's here and a whole bunch of family. You see Cornish flags, Union flags. I don't know what the state flag of Wrexham included is. I guess it's the Welsh flag.
So that there was enough to knock off some time, but she did get down, I think, 2300ths quicker than her first run, but that will annoy her and probably bug her. So she's definitely going to try overnight to suss that out with the coaches. Just a fraction of a different bit of an angle, but she's happy with that.
Yeah, more of a smile. But that definitely took a quarter of a second out. She could have gone as much as half a second faster, maybe, Laura Dees. And look there in the black jacket in the Union flag onesie. That's your Youth Olympic champion, Ashley Pittaway. Jane Channell of Canada is next up. 12th after the first heat. No sign of stray brooms at the start. Track is clear for Jane. Again, a lightning fast starter. The sprinter from North Vancouver. Been struggling with illness this season, a little bit of snow blowing in as well at the start and all the way down the track. 5:03, and that's a 10th of a second slower than she started in the first heat.
Yes, a little bit slower than her first push. And already you can see she's gone into the red, which means that Laura Dees has maintained that first position at the moment, and she has already slowly eased that speed. She had problems at the bottom part of the track on run one. So for Laura, it looks like she's going to stay up there and prove that Laura did have a really good second run there.
You can really hear the wind picking up on the microphones. It's suddenly got very blustery, and Jane may well have been running into a bit of a headwind at the start. Doesn't take much to knock a 1/10 of a second out of your speed. She's got a good line at the bottom, starting to bring it back. 500s in front, and at the line, a 10th in front of Laura Dees. So Laura moves out to the leader's box, but looks like she might have a bit of a peaceful evening as Jane Channell of Canada moves in front.
That shows you the importance of the exit of Kreisel, because up to that point she was actually slower than Laura, but she had a cleaner exit which gave her more speed in those bottom corners. So I think if Laura can go away and solve the problem of her exit of Kreisel, she could definitely, you know, be up for a few more positions tomorrow racing. See there, perfect line out of Kreisel. She just skimmed and a smoother way through that camber.
And that earned her a 1/4 of a second.
Yeah, we're talking just tiny little angles.
Kendall Westenberg of the USA just outside the top 10 in the first heat. Now, can she find a little bit of an improvement? And again, cleaning up the Kreisel will be key. She had a little bit of a wavy Kreisel first time down. It's such a hard corner, corkscrews around. 5:18 getaway, a fraction slower than her first.
Yeah, and a little bit of snow falling now, just very lightly onto the track.
All the corners are shaded, most of the straights are.
Yeah.
Down here, not too much settling. When you get tiny little dusting, it melts quickly under the runners. It's not too much of a problem either.
Just don't want it to snow any heavier. You can just see it on the TV camera there. Little bit high though, and you can hear her scraping and using her feet fighting to get the perfect line. And as you can see, because of that, she has dropped position here.
Yeah, 1300s behind Jane Channell when she lay down, and that is now out to 3/4 of a second. She is plunging down the order, losing 8 places, down to 8th spot. Tuffy Latour, not really much to write home about on that one. A 52.6 becomes a 53.5. That was nearly 9/10 of a second worse than her first run, and that's the one that is going to haunt her for all of tomorrow.
Yeah, she just dropped out of the Kreisel there, taking that quite hard hit, enough that her whole body has lifted up out of that sled. So you can see the force going through her body and reverberating, and then she just has to settle back into position.
Canada's Jane Channell leads, 10 down, 21 to go in the Women's Skeleton World Championship. Second of 4 heats as the Canadian moves up the order. In a top 10 position after the first of the 4 heats of the Women's Skeleton World Championship, last year's silver medalist from her home track in Innsbruck, it's Janine Flock. Martin Haven and Amy Williams watching the action with you trackside. 1300ths of a second, the advantage over current leader Jane Channell, but wind and snow at the start, which the earlier runners didn't have.
Yeah, she'll definitely be disappointed at the moment. She's won on this track before for a World Cup. So, you know, to be in this position, she can do better and she knows it. But she has struggled all week with her Kreisel, which has obviously unsettled her. And once you have one corner that just gets you, it becomes so frustrating. And that's where the mental side of the sport really comes to play. Let's see how her exit is now on Kreisel. Can she get out clean? No, a little tiny tap, but controls it well to be able to get through.
You heard all the scraping of the toes in the Kreisel to try and get the line right, and still it wasn't there. You can see on the straight as well that she is leaving marks in the snow, and she is going to lose half a dozen places, maybe no, only 4 in the end. Jane Channell continues to move up. Mickey Grunberger shrugs, and that means overnight last year's silver medalist will be outside the top 10, outside the top dozen, with a lot to think about. And it will mostly be about the exit of Kreisel.
Okay, let's look now. This is our dartfish in the straightaway between Janine and Chanel from Canada. You can compare these different lines. Where are they taking those little tiny taps and important bumps, and who is looking and fighting with their feet? So it's quite an interesting way to see, and then that line into the little corner before the 360.
So Jane Channell continues to lead as we move now to our 9th fastest slider in the first heat, Yelena Nikitina, the Olympic bronze medalist, junior world champion in women's skeleton. Now she's got a big start. She was fastest in the first heat, came down only 9th fastest.
Yeah, she was 100th of a second quicker than her first push. She has her best push out here on the circuit. You know, you want to push even harder with that little tiny bit of snow coming down. She has a little bullet on the sled, very compact and tiny, but her head, to be fair, is a little quite high there. You can just see she's lifting it up, but she is still maintaining that first position.
Huge waves, drills the wall out of the Kreisel, ping bongs from wall to wall down the labyrinth. She was a quarter second up. That is enough to put her maybe a quarter second behind at the line. Oh, and again, head way up. She had no idea where she was going there. And Nikitina drops 8 places. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, she really struggled in that bottom bit, and that's the effect again of that Kreisel. She missed that steer of the second oscillation, and so the sled got pulled right up into the roof, and then that's the knock-on effect. You can't come back. She really struggled to get it back on track afterwards. And we can see here, she drops low after the first one, doesn't manage to steer it to keep it low. And then, you know, the pressure just builds up so much at the end, and she takes the hit. And for her, unfortunately, she then pinged across and also hit on the opposite side of the wall. You can actually see the little dents into the wall of ice there from all those bumpers of the runners, the sled.
Yelena Nikitina drops 8 spots. Jane Channell still leads. We had a tie for 7th place in the first of our 4 heats. Lelda Prejelena of Latvia here, and Anna Fernstadt, the German rookie. And the snow continues to fall more heavily. Every minute now is going to make the track slower.
Yeah, so the athletes can actually kind of go when they want. There is a green light, a traffic light system. It turns red to green when everyone's safe on the track. You want to go as soon as possible. For first today, you know, now the snow is coming, so you want to go. They've swept it clean. As soon as you see that green light, you push.
Well, Jane Channell has really caught a bit of a lucky break here with the weather. It's now actually snowing properly for these later runners, and she got in just as it was starting. Lelda Prejelena drops behind from 1500 up at the start to 7/10 behind. Wow.
Yeah, she's just losing it a little bit. I mean, it is snowing, and this track is very well covered, just apart from that straightaway. So you can just see that is the advantage of the slightly larger, heavier girls, is that their weight enables them to go through the snow and still touch the ice underneath. But let's have a look there. Experienced sliders, it's different sliding than snow. There's not, well, it is coming down a little bit thicker, but hopefully everyone can get down and still get the positions they want.
We've still got 25 sleds to come. I wonder whether they're going to let this continue, because we've had the last 3 or 4 sleds have lost a large number of positions, not through major. And look at the track now. As soon as you come out from under the roof at the start, you're into inch-deep snow.
Yeah, you can see actually the marks from the runners showing you where the snow is and isn't.
And if you're at the start now, you know you are going to lose positions, and that's not a fair race. The jury now need to decide if they're going to allow this heat to continue any longer, because clearly the weather conditions are very different than they were for the earlier runners.
Yes, it's part of sliding in this extreme different weathers. It can change so quickly. it is upsetting as an athlete, and yet you can't let it play on your mind. You just have to go out there and do the very best. It is kind of getting worse for different people, but you know the athletes around you are roughly getting the same. This is our next German, Anna, so she knows this track well, and let's see how she can do in these conditions.
20-year-old Bavarian rookie in the World Cup. This is her first World Championships. This is her home track. Her start alone was 0.11 of a second slower than she produced in clear conditions in the first heat. This is her home track. She is going to lose a second. It's not because she's not driving properly. This is the acid test. If the jury let this go on, then the race will be a travesty.
So she has got down slower than her first run, but in 13th place there. So yeah, let's see what happens with the jury. I mean, all we can say for Laura Dees, well, lucky draw there before the snow started, because she's managed to maintain that second position.
Yeah. Laura Dees, Jane Channel are just soaring up the order. Maria Oliver might have been disappointed to lose 3 places early on, but she's rising as well, because this is a different track to the one that the first 6 or 7 women were on. Yelena Nikitina there with arms crossed. The body language is clear.
Yes.
Well, listen, I mean, you know, Anna Fehrenstedt was a quarter of a second ahead of Jane Channel, finishes a second behind her on her home track. Next up, Marilla Reneva of Canada. Second fastest start in the first heat, 4:94. And what is Ivo Parkens, her coach, thinking? Her coach is thinking, this is a waste of time and effort on everybody's part. 4:94 becomes 5:09, a 1/10 of a second slower. And that's just in the couple of meters that they're out into the snow after the start.
Yes, that snow just falls in that one little section where there is no cover. All of these corners are covered up, and then they just hit the snow here. So there's just those tiny 2 little sections where the snow is getting to them, and then once they're in the corner, you're obviously back to that solid ice.
She was 0.3 of a second ahead of Jane Channel. She got to the end of the straight 0.3 behind. Okay, big mistake coming off the Kreisel, but that's because she doesn't have the speed that she was expecting.
Yeah, she cut the corner off the end of that and unusually actually hit on the opposite wall to most people.
Okay, I'm now at a loss. She has lost nearly 2.5 seconds on that run, and that was not all below the Kreisel. I'm at a loss now as to what the jury think they're doing, because this race should have been stopped 5 sleds ago, minimum.
Yeah, you can almost see the kind of awkwardness of Jane standing there on that first place box, because she kind of knows it's snowing. She knows she got a great run down, but also was very lucky not to have the slow. So she's sort of standing there, and bless, you can almost see that sort of awkwardness. So there we are at the end of the Kreisel. She's actually she dropped too low and cut the end section of that corner. Got the typical scorpion legs coming over her as she hits really hard on that left-hand side.
Well, she and Anna Fehrenstedt have plunged to the bottom of the orders. Mimi Reneva is last. Mimi Reneva, who was in 6th place in the first heat. 5th place in the first heat, Kim Malmers of Belgium. The little Belgian had a really rocking run. She was first out the start shed, 5th fastest in the World Championships on the first run. And her advantage from the first heat over Jane Channel was 0.34 of a second.
Yeah, she had a good solid first run. Tiny, compact athlete on the sled. Good start, but not as fast as her first run, because I think with that snow getting into the groove right at the very end.
Speed to low. Jane Channel going into the Kreisel doing 67.8 miles an hour. Kim Meiermans 63.8. 4 miles an hour slower, nearly 10 Ks down.
Yes, and she's actually having a very good run at the bottom of this track. She had a really good line at Appraisal, great through that strange little labyrinth. Yeah, everyone's a little bit like bemused, aren't they, as to what to think about this World Championships now with this snow.
Well, our first heat leader and our world champion, if this continues, will be the better part of 3 seconds behind after their runs.
Yeah, I think the big thing will be, won't it, to see how our top girls can be. We can now exactly see the difference in the lines of the different athletes there because of the snow. The snow actually allows you to see the difference of inches, a bit left, a little bit right, going into that first corner.
Look at them all. Lelda Predjelena there, Kim Milmans. They're just going, OK, somebody sank the ship and nobody's thrown the lifeboats out yet. Lizzie Arnold of Great Britain, the Olympic champion. We've got the 2014, the 2010, the 2006 Olympic champions on the venue, 2 of whom are still competing, and our 2016 Youth Olympic girls skeleton champion as well, watching Lizzie Arnold.
Yes, so Lizzie's first start was a 5:05. She's done a 5:11 there. Brilliant line there coming out of that first corner, and perfect body position.
She's got the experience, she's got the height, she's got the body mass, she's got everything she needs. And yet her lead has gone down from over 4 tenths to just 2 tenths before she gets to the snow on the straight.
Yeah, the snow on the start of the straight there did look like it pushed to the side. So whether they have jumped in there and actually done a little sweeping, I'm not quite sure.
Well, there's a line you'll never see again in your life from Lizzie Arnold. She had no speed in the Kreisel. She's 2 tenths of a second down. And again, the Olympic champion, 4th in the first heat, drops behind Jane Channel, and this is no disrespect to Jane. She was 4 tenths in front. She has lost 1.5 seconds on that run.
Yes, obviously she had different speed going into the Kreisel, but she obviously wasn't feeling it as much because she also had a messy outrun and would not be happy with the fact that she clipped that inside corner and then couldn't control it or get it quite back on. But you can see the disappointment there. She comes out here totally the wrong angle, taking that hit on the inside of that camera, and you can't really do anything about it. But she's there, almost back into the right position, but takes another hit.
Well, family and friends are down there. There's a dad in the red jacket, and mum's there as well. And lots of family and friends. Laura D's there to give her a hug. Jane Channel still leads, and Jane has just gone to get a coat and hide her blushes. Elizabeth Archer, 3rd after the first heat. Look at the advantage, 42 hundredths of a second. We're into the top 3 in the world from the first heat. And still, the slider who was in 12th place is our race leader.
Yeah, they're going to be giving it everything they've got. The snow is going to be frustrating them, and yet at the same time, they still have to slide. They still have to concentrate on their steers and just do the very best they can. Yep. They could wake up tomorrow and we could have perfect conditions again, and they still have to fight for those next 2 runs. So even though there's Lizzie Arnold down in 12th place, tomorrow is a different game. They might have to scrap today mentally and just do their best, almost knowing that this has turned into a little bit of an unfair race.
Well, it stopped being an unfair race a long while ago. It's now just, it's not even a lottery, because nobody now has a chance to improve on the times that were set before it started snowing. So 1.7 seconds behind from 4 tenths up. Well, I'm now starting to run out of ways to possibly even remotely explain what's going on.
Yeah, whether or not they go to the juries, and I don't know whether there can be a decision that you can scrap day 1 and actually see what the conditions are like on day 2. I don't know. Has it ever been done before that they've only taken
quite often
you
cancel a heat when the first heat was clean, the weather wasn't that bad. The second heat, though, is a different kettle of fish. Normally, you would expect them to have stopped it because clearly the weather has been. Yeah.
Let it go.
Let it go. There's her mum, Rita, down there in the white hat, who will be offering tea and sympathy, or sympathy at least. World champion in the red vest, Tina Hermann. 600ths of a second covered the top 2 in the first heat, and they were a quarter of a second ahead of 3rd 0.6 of a second ahead of our current leader, Jane Channell from Canada. As you pointed out, as soon as they lie down, this is serious. You're going to end up doing 75 miles an hour down the bottom of the track. You cannot lose focus, so you've got to focus 100%, no matter what the weather.
They're all going to have these negative thoughts in their head, but like you say, it has to go to the back. The conditions are the same for this little group of athletes here. They know how fast they were on the run one, and I guess it will go to the jury's decision, see whether or not this run gets scrapped, and wait to see tomorrow as a different day. But we all know what the results were from that very first run. They've got to stay focused and concentrated. This is a very good run from her so far. She had a much cleaner exit of Kreisel than the last few sliders, including Lizzie. So yeah, let's see what her time is. Few corners left. This is the finish one here. 54.65.
Well, she has gone quicker than the last 4 sleds. However, her first heat was a 52.08, and apparently she's forgotten how to slide by 1.6 seconds in the interim. So a 54.65. She shakes her head. Yeah. Well, I think the girls have been remarkably contained. I'm not sure I would have been in this situation.
No, but a very good-looking Kreisel here. Let's think of the positives. Great Kreisel there. She had a great exit. And yeah, you can only just keep your own head together, keep your thoughts together, don't get too angry, because you are still racing at the end of the day, and you don't know what the jury members are going to do with a decision to maybe cancel a run.
Our race leader from the first heat, Jacqueline Lurling of Germany, set a new track record in the team competition last Saturday, a 51.23. If she gets within 3 seconds of that, right now, that will be a superlative run. Her advantage over Jane Channell of Canada, the current leader, was nearly 0.65 of a second. And she starts 5.24, her first start 5.17.
Yeah, the slowest start out of this group. She never had the fastest start to begin with, plus the added snow. And now a little clip that she never did on the first run out of that S-bend.
Her arch rival Tina Hermann, who was 600s behind her in the first heat, is down in 14th. Lizzie Arnold, who was in 4th, is in 12th.
Beautiful clean lines there out of the Kreisel and down through that little wobble of a kind of cambered labyrinth.
Well, Lurling somehow held her lead to the Kreisel. She's down 3 spots and she ends up in 3rd place. That is unbelievable. A 53.28. That is an astonishing ability to find speed from Jacqueline Lurling in filthy conditions. Wow.
So that's kept Jane from Canada up in the first place, Laura Dees in second, and Jacqueline there, who was smashing it in the first run, in 3rd place. But look at this. She took that clip out of the S-bend, which I'm sure she probably has hardly ever done because she knows this track so well. You can see the little bits of snow building up there down that wiggle-woggle of a straight.
And she was still a 1.25 seconds slower than her first heat. Jane Channell, the leader, went down 1900s faster than her first heat. She leads from Laura Dees. Laura was 13th, Jane was 12th, and they now have the advantage over our first heat leader as Annie O'Shea from 21st place tries to find a better run through the Kreisel. Well, it seems unlikely because she's going to get to the Kreisel slower than she did in the first heat. That means handling the pressure is going to be even harder because she doesn't have as much momentum. Leading a long trail from both runners down the straight, 102 kilometers an hour. That is 4.5 miles an hour slower, and ironically, she gets a better exit and then bumps over the doodles.
Yeah, that was a cleaner exit than her first run. So at least she'd be happy with the way she actually drove that.
Well, now, anybody outside the top 20, if for some bizarre reason this run is allowed to stand, will see their chances of getting into the 20 just growing into hopelessness. Annie O'Shea is in 21st place, and she is now 1.3 seconds out of 20th, which is held by Elizabeth Archie, who was fourth in the first heat. Third in the first heat, rather.
She did have a cleaner run down this bottom of the track, Annie, there, compared with her first run. But obviously, if you go into corners with a little bit less speed, what happens within a corner changes as well.
The jury foreman is at the top with Eric Benotus and Donna Crichton. And I think Eric was saying to Donna, are you going to go? And I'm... Okay.
Something's going on up there, isn't it? There's some decisions.
Yep.
I don't know why they would decide to suddenly cancel it now.
No. I think we had 15 sleds to make that decision in. Now, Daniel Sclatter, who is in charge of the runs here, in charge of this competition, said, OK, that's it. We're done.
I can only think that they've decided to then scrap this second run and maybe make it a 3-run race.
I think that's exactly. There's no time to get 3 heats in tomorrow because we have the 4-man competition starting as well. So I think that's exactly what has happened. And probably a dozen sleds at least too late. But when the leader comes down and can't get within a second and a half of her first heat time, then there was no. All right, you know, it's a tough break for Jane Channel. She might still pick up 2 or 3 places, half a dozen places if she has a good second day. But the first heat will stand as our overnight result. We are down to a 3-heat race, and that was the only sensible option. There's Jacqueline Lurling, who will go to bed as the overnight leader from Tina Herman. There in the other yellow jacket, the world champion will be within 600ths of our leader overnight. And unfortunately, there was really no option. The weather just... If it had been snowing right from the start, Amy, and everybody had had snow, then that would have been one thing.
Yeah. I think when the conditions change so dramatically from, you know, groups of sliders and they can't go down and sweep all the snow, they have to make a decision. On the flip side, it's part of our sport. You know, we're very used to things like this happening, but it was clearly affecting the results in a major way to what we know those top sort of 6 sliders were.
Yeah, absolutely. Elizabeth Archie from 3rd place in the first heat dropped to 20th. It wasn't that bad of a run, you know, it was always going to happen. And now, of course, the bitter irony is that the weather is changing and the snow is starting to lessen. However, it has wreaked havoc with the field, and there's no way in the remaining 2 heats that anybody who is disadvantaged by a couple of seconds in the snow would ever be able to find that back. So they had no option. The only thing was how long it took was kind of a surprise for everybody, I think. Well, Jane Channel, yeah, she spent a lot of time in the leader box looking a little bit embarrassed by the whole scenario because she clearly knew that it was no longer much of a race. And there's Mimi Reneva. She's done a bit of training with Carla Pavan, one of the former skeleton sliders who you know. But it's just a difficult situation for everybody. As you can see now, hardly a flake of snow, and that is always Murphy's Law, but it had already done its damage.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, Laura there was in 2nd place.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we are going to have to go and wait for a decision. The sleds are due back on ice at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Sleds are due back on ice at 8:30 tomorrow morning, and that will be the 3rd of 3 heats. So Jacqueline Lurling explaining to the media what she thinks about the situation, and really it was unfortunate. Bit of a snowstorm, could have missed us. You know, we only had another 10 sleds to go when it stopped, but for everybody, kind of ruined that 2nd heat. So that has been cancelled. And we will now wait for tomorrow morning to get our 3rd heat underway, and then we will cut the field to the fast 20 to go into the 4th and final heat, unless we hear differently overnight, and they're going to try and somehow cram in a 3rd heat. There is a historic bobsled race, but that's not till Sunday after the men's skeleton event before the 4-man. And now, as the skies brighten and the weather clears, the weather blows on its way. And hopefully that'll be the last snow interruption we have during the second weekend of these World Championships. Well, through rather a cat among the pigeons. And there's Lizzie Arnold, Dad Clive, Mum Judith. So she will still be in 4th place overnight, and Jane Channel there. Spent a lot of time in the leader's box looking a little bit sheepish. She will be in 12th spot. So first heat standings will count, which means our race leader is Jacqueline Lurling, and Tina Herman will be 600s behind her when we get back on the ice at 8:30 local. That's 07:30 GMT tomorrow morning. So wherever you are, you can convert that into your own time. Please join us, because we still have a thrilling race on our hands. Hopefully the weather will play fair with us and we will get it all done nice and cleanly. Well, that's it from Amy Williams, from the IBSF TV crew, and from me, Martin Haven, for today. Join us tomorrow morning bright and early, and we will get the Women's Skeleton World Championships back underway to decide the medals in the last weekend of action here in Königssee.